Greetings sailors and welcome to a player replay, this time featuring a name that might be familiar to some of you. This is Gidzeki, who is also the DM of the Star Wars tabletop RPG campaign that has started appearing on my channel. He also plays warships, as is evident from the fact that this is him playing warships. I probably didn't need to say that sentence out loud, but anyway, he's in the Fushun, top tier, and this is an old enough replay that that's a tier 6 Cleveland. Although it's not that old, it's I think 070, 071, something like that. So it's not like it's hilariously ancient or anything, and it wasn't like it was that long ago that the Cleveland was changed. It's just, it's a somewhat startling sight. It's funny how quickly one adjusts to things being shuffled around the different tiers. Well, one would have to, I suppose. So this is essentially a Gnevny, but with deep water torps that have twice the range of the Gnevny's normal torps. So in some ways it is the far better torp boat than the Gnevny, but of course being deep water torps, it can't torp other destroyers. But that's not such an issue because it's basically a Gnevny and it has very good guns. It's got those Soviet 130mm, which not all of the line do, of course. It's a real mix. You've got some British guns, Soviet guns, and of course, well, actually some Japanese guns as well, and American guns. So in terms of gun performance, yeah, the line is not consistent at all. Now this is very good matchmaking, but there is a carrier in play, so that might make being stealthy a little trickier, although it really does depend on what the enemy carrier's doing. If they're a good player, they might be trying to keep destroyer players spotted, and if they're not such a good player, which is entirely possible at this tier, it just might not be an issue at all. So Gidzeki gets the kill on that enemy Farragut, but these cruisers are getting a little bit close, as is the new mechs. He's got a bit of time left on this smoke though, so he pings away at the Budioni. And, oh, well, hello Perth. Okay, it seems like their Perth is just pretty much going for it. And it's not like the Perth is an especially tanky ship, so okay, we'll see how that works out for them. Otherwise nearby, well, there's the new mechs, but there's also that Cleveland still around somewhere as well, lurking in the smoke. And, oh, there they are. And so, although this isn't a bad spot to be right now, stuff is rather close, all things considered. Stuff. The enemy team. Enemy ships are rather close. And he is very definitely spotted right now. But he takes the slightly risky option of smoking up again, because of course his smoke, this being a Pan-Asian destroyer, comes back very, very quickly. That's one of the features I like of the line. It's almost, to me, more their defining characteristic than the deep water torpedoes, is the ability to lay down the smokes fairly quickly. They're not especially long-lasting smokes, but it is a very, very useful feature, especially in a more gunnery-oriented ship like this one. Of course, while he's smoked, he can't see any cruisers that might be sneaking up on his smoke. And this is, personally, around about the time when I would have been getting out of here. But, well, okay, that Cleveland is now perhaps a tad on the close side. He could potentially dip out of the smoke to the south, but now the Budioni is closing in from the west as well. Yeah, he really should be getting out of here right now, but instead... Okay, well, this is going to get a bit tricky. So that Cleveland is almost going to be close enough to spot him whilst firing from the smoke, as will the Budioni. He does have his torps available as well, of course, but these cruisers are going to be expecting torps from this smoke cloud. So he puts his torps out, and there we go, gets spotted, even though he's got a little bit of time left on his smoke. Being this close to two light cruisers. Okay, it's a bit risky. He takes out the Cleveland, but that Budioni's still on his tail. He will have smoke back momentarily, of course, as well. But the Budioni's not a slow ship. It really isn't, and his speed boost has now run down. So he could keep trying to go through this smoke and break line of sight with the Budyoni. Or he could do the, again, not terribly sensible thing. He slows down and, well, if he fires now, he's going to get spotted pretty much. So, well, he didn't even have to fire. His detection was still from firing previously. So he realises his mistake, starts powering up again. Just enough distance to... Nope, there we go, spotted again. But while all this has been going on, his torpedoes have been, of course, all reloading. So, realising this, realising that he's not going to win in a gunfight. Oh yeah, that was a nasty salvo. He turns, gets his torps out. He's going to have to dodge Budyoni torps as well, but it looks like he has been successful. This cost him a lot of health though, and he easily could have died here. So, he said himself in the email that these cruisers, what was the exact phrase? They had him banged to rights, but he got away with it anyway. It was words to that effect. So, anyway, he's taken out 2 light cruisers in fairly close quarters combat, which is not nothing. And now it's pretty much just the New Mexico, and, well, presumably there's a carrier around here as well somewhere. And the carrier hasn't been paying much attention to him. To be fair, there are still a lot of his allied ships around their own cap defending, and they do seem to be putting up quite a staunch defence. But if I were that carrier, I'd be worried about there being a destroyer so close. But apparently this enemy carrier just isn't. The New Mex, meanwhile, is, it seems like, trying to head him off, trying to defend the cap, trying to stop him getting closer to the carrier. And if he opens fire at this point, you know, it could all go very hilariously wrong. And in fact, there is the carrier. But although the New Mex has the right idea, seemingly, what they have failed to account for is the fact that he has torpedoes, and therefore going in a straight line is probably a really bad idea. They know he's here, they're reacting to him being here, but they're not reacting to the fact that there may well be torpedoes in the water. And especially that little telltale there when you switch from your torp reticle to your guns. And if you've got the captain skill that tells you you're being targeted, that is a dead giveaway when you know there is a destroyer nearby. And suddenly you go from not being spotted, or not being targeted rather, to being targeted. It's a pretty good clue that somebody has dropped just a spread of torps on you. And so you should take evasive action. This New Mex doesn't seem to have gotten that particular memo though, so there we go. And of course, that's his 5th kill as well. That's his Kraken Unleashed, so not bad. You know, it was a bit ridiculous in a way he got away with those light cruisers, got away with killing them. They kind of derped rather badly in that regard, and he was able to fully take advantage of that, but it cost him a lot in the process. But that battleship had no excuse. They really had no excuse. So they seem to be winning this one fairly well at this point. There is possibly the enemy Fushun coming back down. The Fuso is also unaccounted for. This carrier's not trying to spot him at all. It'll have pinged up that he's spotted by something. He knows there's a destroyer somewhere nearby. I mean, granted, these planes are probably coming back from dropping their payloads and therefore won't actually have any ordnance, but he can at least spot Gidzeki for his allies, because there's the Fuso. But that doesn't seem to have particularly crossed their mind, so this is clearly a less experienced carrier player. And at this point, Gidzeki just decides to open fire, which is kind of a risky thing, because the Fuso is just on the other side of the cap circle. They are really not so far away. It's not going to take a lot to kill him at this point. Maybe realising that, he smokes up. Now the Fuso is just out of range. The Fushun, the enemy Fushun, is definitely coming back at this point. And of course, at this stage, having smoked up, he doesn't have anyone to spot the carrier for him, which is clearly his objective at the moment. There is a stroke of luck though. The Fuso is basically ignoring his presence. The Fushun's well out of gun range at the moment, but the Fuso seems to be entirely concentrating on what's going on towards the north. So he is free and clear to open fire once again at this boat, who has finally decided to do something about this threatening destroyer. Now, given his health, Gidzeki easily could have died to that bomb drop, although with only 3 bombers left in that squad, it would have been some pretty good RNG needed from the Bogue, but as it was, he only took 1 hit and he was able to immediately extinguish the fire, so it wasn't nearly enough to kill him. And as of course it's a tier 5 carrier, there was no way that Gidzeki would have had to have severely derped to have eaten the airdrop to torpedoes. You can't make a manual airdrop with those torps, so there's no excuse for eating a bunch of torpedoes in those kind of circumstances, especially when there was only 2 of the torp bombers left. So this is just a bunch of extra damage at this point, really. Pinging away at this Bogue, who is screwed. He's basically gotten all of this Bogue's hit points, so that has been a bonus 30-odd thousand. And that'll just leave the Fushun, who is now within range to start firing at him. And has actually managed to land a hit, so although the carrier's down, that Fushun could still potentially kill him. But he's still got smoke left. We don't know if this Fushun does or not. But this time he does have air spotting. So he is just free to sit here and put his guns to work. Now the Fushun doesn't need that many hits to kill him. It'd be what, like 2 shell hits, or maybe a shell hit into a fire? Well, actually that wouldn't do it because he's got his repair party available, of course. But just the fact that he's got the smoke that he can sit in, and this Fushun's getting air spotted and is seemingly out of smoke, or else unwilling to use it, although I don't see why you would be. Although, I don't know, it would be delaying the inevitable really, wouldn't it? Maybe the Fushun just decided to go out and try and take one last ship with him, which is fair enough. So he gets briefly unspotted, but the friendly carrier reacquires him, and yeah, this is mostly Gidzeki's damage. The Fushun is trying to blind hit him, and actually does manage one, but it's not enough. And with a fire, and this final salvo, there we go. 7 kills. More than half the enemy team fell to Gidzeki's guns and torpedoes, which is not half bad. I know he was top tier in tier 6 in a very capable destroyer, but even so, it's really one of those games where, like, how much is the enemy team going to let you get away with? And in this case, it was quite a lot. So 7 kills, 2100 base XP nearly, and some quite decent medals out of it. But if there'd been better players in the Cleveland and the Budyoni, it's probably not nearly as likely he would have survived this. Hell, if there'd been a better player in the enemy Bogue, again, it's also possible he would not have survived if he'd had full dive bomber squads coming at him much earlier on. But as it was, enough of the enemy players just gave him enough opportunities that he was able to murder half the enemy team and do quite well out of it all round. Hopefully this will be an entertaining match for everybody, and hopefully it will persuade Gidzeki to let our party find some really nice gear in the next session. I don't know. This is one way to bribe a DM, right? Anyway, if you did find it a good match, though, if you found it interesting and entertaining, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video, and of course, as always, stay tuned for more.